Hey, I'm Jay, and you're listening to the More Than podcast. I'm a former Miss Arizona USA, professional model, confidence coach, and red carpet host. Don't let those titles fool you, though. I'm a 30-year-old, overly curious woman who loves to connect with others over the good, the bad, and the hilarious parts of our stories. From the outside looking in, my 20s looked really glamorous, but in reality, I struggled deeply with my confidence, self-worth, and mental health. I went on a deep healing journey to figure out how to live a life that felt as fulfilling as it looked, and now I help you do that too. I'm not afraid to go deep, and our guests aren't either. We talk all about mindset, mental health, confidence, relationships, beauty, boundaries, business, fashion, while giving you tangible tools for your own growth. This is one of those girl chats that leave you feeling inspired and empower you to stop settling and create a life you love. You're so much more than whatever's holding you back, and I'm so glad you're here. I can't believe we're finally doing this because it's been a long time coming.
It's been a long time coming.
I will never forget meeting you for the very first time. And I'm pretty sure it was April because I had just gotten done recording with Jade and she invited me to Soho House and I thought her and I were just getting lunch. And I show up and it's like a powwow of like 10 beautiful, stunning, creative, amazing women. Don't know any of them.
No, it was my second week living there.
You like raised your hand. You're like, I have a spot right next to you. And I sat next to you. You're like, hi, I'm Caroline. I just moved here. I don't know anybody. Would you like to be friends?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. And you walked into a room and I was like, I need this human's aura near me all the time. Like, you walked in and I was like, that's my friend. She doesn't know what you have. That's my friend.
That's my friend. And we became fast friends.
We did.
It was just like
the course of 20 minutes. And
literally.
I was like, I didn't do any work and it was the best day ever because I got to meet you. And I just love you.
And I love you. And look at us now. And something that I really love and respect about you is that you were so giving right off the bat that you're like, hi, this is what I do. How can I help you? What do you do? What are your goals? Like, I almost felt like I was meeting with like a consultant
career
or a
coach.
Manager. Yeah, you're like, okay, what do you need? How do we get you to the next level? I'm like, I'm sorry. What?
I think with my job being on the other end for the first all of my career being like on the influencer managerial side and like the side of knowing how much opportunity exists.
Me.
Bless you, my girl. Bless you. I think knowing all the opportunity that exists on the other side and constantly hoping and waiting that someone would offer it to me when I started creating, now it's such a natural instinct for me to be like, okay, there's room for all of us, and I'm meeting another girl who's wanting to do or doing the same thing that I'm doing, and why not give everything that I have to offer, not in exchange for anything back, but just because why not? Because then there's more success around us and it just lifts everybody up. Alicia always says I'm her Kris Jenner because I do the same thing.
Hey, that fits.
And I'm like, she literally will text me and be like, okay, I have a manager and I know that, but what would you do in this, this, and this? And I'm like, well, let me tell you. And it's an honor because I'm having smart, beautiful, talented women even want to pick my brain on anything. I'm like, if you told 18-year-old me that, I would cry.
Well, let's go back to 18-year-old you because you just restarted your entire life you moved to Austin not even 6 months ago.
No,
right?
On March 13th.
And you completely revamped, restarted, going from not having any friends here to now you're in a happy relationship. You are thriving. Yeah. So what made you want to leave Boston in the first place and start over?
So I've always loved starting over. I find a lot of beauty in hitting a reset button. And this is not nearly the first time that I've done it. I moved from Hawaii to Vermont when I was in middle school with my dad. And that was the most horrible, painful starting over because I was in middle school and I was so not a good version of myself because I was a literal 12-year-old.
A child.
You can't be the best version of yourself at 12. You're going through puberty. But that was a big change. And I think going through that change at that age made me realize okay, you can move around, because eventually it got better in high school and I became a little bit more sure of myself. And then I moved from Vermont to Boston for college. And that was a huge change because I went from the suburbs of a little Vermont to downtown Boston. And I saw how much I grew living there. And then when I graduated school in Boston, the day after I moved to LA with no job, no friends, wasn't doing content, was 22. I just was like, why not? Because if I don't do it now, I probably won't ever do it. That move was really tough. And LA kind of like chewed me up and spit me out a little bit because I was making $0. I was about 70 pounds heavier, and I was surrounded by people that were very small, and I worked in plastic surgery as the influencer marketing like manager for a plastic surgeon, where we were trading surgery for content. And that move in general was the move where I was like, okay, I can't ever do this again. So then I moved back to Hawaii. And then from there, I was like, I need to go back to Boston because that's the only sense of community that I have, because all of my college friends were still there. And so I moved back, and I stayed in Boston for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years after that, because at that point, it was like, that was my comfort zone again. And I moved back there so that I could really find a career that, I mean, nothing against working in plastics, but like it wasn't good for me. I wanted to do influencer marketing and like storytell and work with brands, but not in that way. So I needed to start over. And then my goal was, okay, I'll move back to Boston and I'll do all of that, and I'll, you know, really find myself and grow into a career person, everything else. And then when I'm done with that, I'll leave. And I think I kind of overextended my stay there because I did really fall into my career with like being an influencer marketing manager and a strategist. And I had the best friends, and I had really a glow up, like physically and mentally. But by the end of last year, I was sort of in a completely different place than I ever thought I would be, because I was doing content full time, which meant I didn't need to be anywhere. I could be everywhere. Like, I didn't have to live in a city where I went originally back to for the people that I knew, and, you know, a job that was corporate, because at this point now it's like I have all these internet friends all over the country, and like this time I wasn't afraid. So what had happened was I was dating someone, and we broke up last November, and it was just not the right relationship at all. But when we broke up, it sort of led me to think like, why am I still here? And was I here because I've just been in this relationship and have my friends and whatever else? And the answer was kind of, yeah, 100%. And so when I went home to Hawaii this past February, I was there for half of February visiting my dad and my brother. And I was so happy in the sun, and like so happy just not being in the cold. Like, Boston is the best city in the world, but it's hard to live in. It's become one of the, I think, top 2 most expensive cities to live in. I was paying $4,200 for a 1-bed there that I was renting. I couldn't afford to pay for a car because it's like $500 a month to park there. So I was in Hawaii, and I was thriving again. And I have horrible seasonal depression too. Like, the winter would take it out of me for every half of the year. I was just like empty. So in Hawaii, I was there for half the month. I came back, and I went back to snowy, cold, freezing Boston and my friends, but like, what else really? And the only person that I knew here was Catherine Lockhart, and I were friends through TikTok. Like, we met, and we had been friends for almost a year. We would text and things, and like,
no way.
I had this weird gut feeling where I was like, I think I need to visit Austin. And I texted her, this is the end of February, like the day after I got back from Hawaii. We were already talking like pretty frequently as friends. And I was like, can I come visit Austin? And like, will you like show me around? I think I might want to move there. Like, I didn't know like why I was saying
And you had
any of
never been
this.
here before?
No.
Wow.
At all. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And I took my best friend, Caitlin, in Boston. I was like, if I pay for this entire trip and I pay for like hotels and flights for both of us, will you come with me? And she was like, duh. And she was about to move to New York from Boston and have a big change. So I was like, what a great way to like take one of my best friends and like do this little trip. So we came for the weekend. We had the best time. Partially, I think, because it was February and I was in shorts again. And I just like loved the vibe of the city, and everyone was so friendly. And I kind of just was like absolutely thriving with like being hit on during that weekend. And I felt like I had kind of not dated everyone in Boston, because that's not true at all, but I felt like I was seeing the same guys on dating apps all the time years after. I was going to the same bars all the time. It's a very college city, obviously, because it has the smartest people in the country living there, with MIT, Harvard, Northeastern, BU, BC. But I think I needed something a little different. And at the airport going back, I was crying because I was like, I don't want to leave. And so I said, I'm just going to break my lease and sign a new one right now at the airport, because with the fact that I'm doing content right now, I'm financially doing better than I ever was on the other end, on the corporate end. And I don't know how long this is going to last. Like, truly, this career is a shelf life career unless you play it really smart and turn it into something long lasting. But with that being said, I was like, you know, how many opportunities am I going to have the ability to break a lease and not have it really impact my bank account, and, you know, strategically work with a moving company in exchange for content to move me here and do all of that? Like, why not? And so after like the 48 hours visiting, I just broke my lease. And then I came here, and Catherine was the only person I knew, really, but I had DM'd a ton of the other girls in the area that did content just to be like, hey, I'm here, or I'm coming. It was before I even moved, and I was like, I would love to meet you. Like, I'd love to get dinner with you, just to whatever. And so it feels like I already had a few people kind of like, you know, there waiting. But it was a really hard transition the first like month and a half. And I feel like it looked really easy because I met my boyfriend in April, at the end of April. But between like moving here and that, I had a really tough time adjusting, because I think I put moving and like the reset of it all on a pedestal, and it kind of is like wherever you go, there you are. It's just exactly where you pick up, but in a new place. And I was like, oh, now there are bugs everywhere, and I'm really hot all the time, and I don't feel as safe. Like, the city's definitely not as safe as Boston, at least where I lived.
Which is so interesting, because you always hear, like, New York, Boston, like, so dangerous. And then you come to Austin, you're like, no, this is another level.
Yeah, it's another level. Like, I was, like, moved here, and someone was, like, using a machete to cut people's arm off on the trail, and then, like, someone's car got stolen from my lot, and all these different things. And I was like, oh, this is not Boston. Like, this is not my safe little manicured area. But, again, I've always looked back and been thankful for making myself go through these really hard times of change and like growth periods. And I think I got way too comfortable there. I wasn't growing at all, like towards the last year or so, aside from like career wise. So I'm really glad I did it, because it ended up working out for me, because I did meet someone who I'm dating now that I like could see myself with forever. And that's crazy.
That is wild.
We're talking about the fact that like the hotel that I stayed at when I visited was like across the street from his apartment at the time, and like all these weird little coincidences. And I'm like, maybe I was totally following my gut for some reason. And I don't know. Obviously, that's to say like anything can happen, and I don't want to like bank on that being a big reason of like why I ended up here. But I do think it's a good sign that like you can leave and start over and still have success. It's not always scary, and it always doesn't take, you know, the longest time. I granted have a leg up because I have this community online where I could post and be like, hey, everyone that knows me that lives in Austin, like,
let's hang out.
And I never would have had that before doing, you know, any other job.
It takes a lot of confidence, though, to not only pick up your life just because you feel comfortable and try something new, but I do feel like your 20s especially are a time for that. But a lot of people even listening now, I'm sure they want to go do something, try out a new career, try out a new city. They want a new relationship because they feel like they're seeing the same people but don't want to put themselves out there. And confidence is what holds them back. So clearly you had enough confidence to pick up your life. Where does that come from?
I think that with confidence, I was a really shy little kid, and I would give away everything that I had in order to like use that as leverage instead of being confident in what I could provide. Like, I remember my parents got talked to because I would give away all of my like fancy Hello Kitty pencils to girls in second grade to like have them talk to me and be my friend, because I don't think I was confident in like what I brought to the table aside from that. And even now, I am probably like overly generous to a fault, and it doesn't necessarily like bring me only good things. But I think the older I've gotten and the more I can like watch people respond to me when I am really genuine and like really looking at someone and like listening to them and letting them speak and like being there for people, and also just seeing, I guess, people's responses to me online now. And, you know, when I think people say like, oh, I want to do content, like, how do I know if I should or not? Like, you have to just roll the dice. People either like you and they're drawn to you, or they're not. Like, that's as blunt and sort of cold as I can say it in a way that's like really honest. But I rolled the dice, and I didn't think that people would warm up to me so quickly or be drawn to me. But the fact that they have, I think, has helped me with my confidence, because it shows me, like, there are strangers that take the time in their day to see what I'm doing or talking about. So if they're confident in me and they're confident in what I'm suggesting and they're making their purchasing habits from that, whatever, like, I should be confident in myself.
Interesting.
And I think that has brought a lot of confidence to me. I will say also, I think just getting older, like, I just turned 29. When I was 22 and I moved to LA, like, I was not confident. I felt like I had to overcompensate with things. I got myself in horrible debt buying things so that I could, like, fit in. And the older I get, the more confident I am in just, like, who I am and what I can bring. And I think people, if anyone's listening and is, like, debating, like, a move or whatever it may be, I think you have to go into it knowing, like, it very well may fail, but you can always go back. And I did. I moved to LA and it failed, and I went back to Boston, like, tail between my legs, kind of, after I had told everyone in Boston, like, bye, I'm going to LA, like, see you never. And I had to, like, repair a lot. But it helped me make moves that were obviously eventually going to be good for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not really afraid of, I guess, having to start over again and again, knowing now that you can always go back. Like, whatever you had is still going to be waiting there for you as long as you took care of it.
And you're never stuck.
No. I mean,
at any age. I mean,
yeah.
Yes, there's other factors.
I was going to say, I am well aware that I am more privileged than probably 99% of the people on Earth when you, like, look at Earth as a whole and, like, what resources people are missing. Knowing that I could just move and not have to factor in a lot of things like children or a job where you have to go to the office, whatever it may be. Like, I know that is not the case for probably, again, 99% of people. But I do think you see people in different situations restarting every day and, like, going somewhere new every day, and they're not, you know, in the same place that I'm in, and they still do it.
Yeah.
So I think confidence really comes from knowing that, like, you've made decisions in the past that have worked for you, so why not think that this next one could as well? And roll the dice and know that, like, it's one or two outcomes. It's either going to work or not. So the odds are not in your favor.
And if it doesn't work, you pick yourself up and you try something new.
Exactly. People survive harder things than I have even probably thought of every day. Mm-hmm. So again, it's like people give birth in fields. People, like, if I can move to Texas and it's a little difficult, and there are people out there, you know, doing God knows what to, like, stay afloat every day, then, like, my confidence and just, like, wherewithal has to drive me home every day to, like, know that, you know, I made a good choice, or maybe down the road I'll decide it's not a good choice. And I don't think I'll be here forever. No. I don't see myself here forever. But I think it's a really good stepping stone, and I think it's bringing me a lot that I was missing.
Well, you're a very self-aware person.
Oh, thank you.
And you're also very empathetic, which we've bonded over many times.
We bonded over our painful existence as an empath. And I know people say, like, and joke about, like, oh, I'm an empath, and they, like, label themselves empaths, and they're certainly not. But, like, when you actually are and you meet another person, especially another woman who is, it's, like, divine.
It's divine. And you also feel seen, because people don't understand that being so empathetic towards other people, it genuinely affects you.
To get yourself out of your own shoes and then place yourself in someone else's every time someone is talking to you is a burden to bear. It's also really beautiful because you bond a lot and, like, learn a lot, whatever else. But yes, I'm with you. It's divine, but
it's a blessing and a
lot
curse.
Of mental anguish.
That it is.
But being self-aware too is, like, it's been really difficult to be as self-aware as I am, and it's made things like therapy really hard, because you can only go and be like, I know this is why I do this is why I react this way, whatever it may be, now help me, to an extent where people are like, you're so self-aware.
You know.
Really
you just
stubborn,
have to do
maybe,
it.
or whatever it may be. And so that, I agree with you. I'm self-aware. You're self-aware, too.
Highly self-aware.
It's a blessing and a curse, for sure.
But I'm glad you brought up therapy, too, because I do feel like since I am such a self-aware person, and maybe you resonate with this too, that I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
I know how things are connected.
Yeah.
But having somebody else validate that, almost like I doubt my own knowing.
Yes.
That having somebody else connect the dots or tell me what to do is like, okay, yeah, I can do that, even though I already intuitively knew that.
I think for me, like cognitive therapy, like regular therapy, stopped working for me because of the self-awareness of it all. But I switched at one point, I'm not in therapy right now, but I switched to dialectal behavioral therapy, which is called DBT.
What does that mean?
It's basically self-talk therapy, where for me, like my anxious attachment issues and stuff from childhood trauma, whatever it may be, even like teenage trauma, like those rooted things in me were the reason why I would react in a way where I would literally go through like the stages of grief and mourning in like a 5-hour period if a guy didn't text me back, or different things where like I felt like truly an emotional burn victim in certain areas of my life. And talk therapy did nothing for me, because I was like, I know why I feel this way. I know that it isn't valid of me to feel this way. But DBT is basically a way of kind of taking the things that we know for fact and then being able to talk to yourself out of it, being like, I know that this person, if it's a guy, let's say, I know nothing happened between us negatively to make them not respond to me. Like, you don't have to, you know, go through all the things in my head of like, oh, why this or that. Like, it's more about self-talk and self-soothing. And it's really hard to find a DBT therapist that takes insurance, but there's actually a DBT workbook on Amazon that I got that helped me a lot, and it's a really good resource. It's basically like a long workbook and kind of every piece of information that like a DBT therapist would use for you. And I did the entire workbook, and it kind of changed me a lot in the best way, because it kind of helped me be able to talk to myself in a way that I would need a therapist talk to me, but they were never able to like meet me where I needed to be spoken to, and like that area of me that felt like it was not changeable. But I think being self-aware is hard, because you need a different level of someone to like unlock you and be like, let's talk about the facts of the situation. And that helped me. And I think that, again, like propelled me forward. And that's definitely what helped me with dating, because I was a tumultuous dater.
Yeah.
And like did not accept the kind of treatment that I would look back at and be like, younger Caroline deserves that. And I think that, again, goes with confidence. But for me, the whole like dialectal behavioral therapy helped a lot with confidence.
Yeah.
And being able to like talk to myself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then apply that into your dating life.
Pregnancy is such a beautiful and wild journey. Between the nausea, fatigue, body changes, and the anxiety of becoming a first-time mom, it's safe to say I've been on a roller coaster of emotions. Thanks to Ritual, one thing I'm not worried about is getting the key nutrients necessary to support my pregnancy. I chose the Essential Prenatal Multivitamin because it's made traceable with vegan, bioavailable, and clinically studied key nutrients for before and during pregnancy. I personally love that all the nutrients are packed into 2 easy-to-swallow capsules that are not only gentle on my stomach, but they come in both lemon and mint to help ease morning sickness. When it comes to prenatal multivitamins, you want a formula backed by research and transparency. Mom-founded Ritual puts in the work and shows you the proof. Visit ritual.com/morethan, and 25% off your first month of Ritual will automatically be applied at checkout. That's ritual.com/morethan for 25% off.
So when you say that your track record probably isn't something that you would now look back on those partners and probably not give them the time of day.
Totally.
If there's people listening right now that are stuck in that cycle where they are dating people that they know don't reach the standards that they need them to meet, but they can't seem to stop. What helped you change from that kind of dating pattern to then going into a healthy relationship?
I think there were a few different factors. The first was honestly this one thing that I heard that kind of changed my trajectory, and it was so simple, but it was someone talking to me, and I think it was through a TikTok, honestly, of someone saying, when you think about your wedding day, if your goal is to get married, like traditionally mine is, and you're standing at the altar with someone and you think back to your whole story of them all the way from the beginning, is the way you're being treated now part of that narrative and story with your person. And that like weirdly hurt me and stuck with me to a point where like I just cried, because I was dating people that made me feel like I was a burden, or that I was asking for too much when I was asking for nothing, or, you know, anything in between, just feeling like uncertain and unsure. And I think there's nothing more painful than unknowing. For me, I would rather know that someone is not interested in me than to think that they might be and like teeter on the verge of confusion. Like, I can't exist in that state. But that statement weirdly like woke me up, because then at that point I started applying that every time I'd meet someone. And if our story and the way that it went from like our first meet all the way to whatever else felt like, oh, like that's not right, or like I don't want that to be a part of my journey with someone, I kind of was able to like switch something in my brain and kind of cut it off. And it weirdly was helpful, because it was kind of like a checklist that I didn't have to think about. It was just like, I know this doesn't feel right. I know what it feels like to be like harmonious with someone, and this isn't it. So this can't be that person for me, I guess.
What a powerful tool.
I thought so too.
I love that. I feel like that's really going to help somebody.
I think so. I mean, it really helped me. I wish I could remember the original person, because it was definitely a TikTok. I followed, not so much now, but so many like advice, TikToks of other therapists, or just people that are like in happy relationships that didn't used to be, that maybe struggled with. I had the worst anxious attachment you could possibly imagine, because I have some really bad abandonment issues from childhood. And like, that sucked when you were dating someone that like probably was just harmlessly not thinking about you in such a crazy way because they just met you. But for me, I'm like, well, why don't you love me? But either way, like, treatment from the other person wasn't good enough. And so like, if anyone is in a relationship or trying to be in a relationship with someone and you feel like you're like scrounging for the good parts, or you're settling, like, my advice is, and again, like, I love my boyfriend, but I have to reach a point in my like heart where if I was being told, okay, now you're alone again, like, you have to know there are so many people out there. Like, there are so many people out there. And I think now that we're all realizing we don't have to like lock it down when we're in our 20s, there's so much time, there's so many people, like, for any person that is like, you're my, 70% match in the ways that matter, like, there's probably someone out there that is your like 72% or your 80 or your 100. And I don't think that you have to like have a perfect match with someone to have it be right. I think they just have to treat you the way you want to be treated and whatever else. But for me, I'm so glad I didn't settle, because I could have, and I definitely had opportunities to. And now I'm dating someone that, like, I mean, literally the things that I was so afraid of, like, I used to not want to post on my Instagram because I was afraid I was going to meet someone on Hinge and they would see my Instagram and immediately get to prejudge me and predetermine like who I am and perceive me in a way that wasn't accurate. And then I thought to myself, like, no, because that whole storytelling of like when I'm at my ceremony and I meet that person, like, our journey would have never had that be an impact. Like, now I'm dating someone who, the minute I told them what I do, was like, that's so cool. It's like is like my biggest fan and everything else. And I think if I didn't use all of that sentiment to my advantage with dating, I would have been held back in every other area. So it's like, you really have to kind of like, I'm not religious, but like let go and let God, so to say.
Yeah.
And
also be with somebody that's going to accept every part of you, that like, if your online presence is such a huge part of who you are, that if you're hiding that out of fear of being judged, then it's like you can't be fully accepted or fully seen.
Totally.
And you didn't always have a huge online presence. You talked about being an influencer marketing and on the back end. So when you got that job, you started working for a wide range of companies, I assume, and you got to see that these people were making a ton of money, that you could do it better. Like, what was that transition?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to be in influencer marketing when it came to career for me because I am such a child of the internet. Like, I grew up being raised by the girls in like the OG beauty community. Like, that was so therapeutic for me to watch those videos. And like, I love beauty, I love fragrance, I love all of it. Like, to my core, I'm a girly girl, and I love the brain switch off that gets to take place for me when I have to get to stop thinking about the real world and like all of the horrible things going on in the world, and get to just kind of play girly little dollhouse where I'm playing with my beauty stuff and watching YouTube video, whatever it may be. So when it came to a job, I knew I wanted to be in marketing because honestly I didn't know what else I wanted to do. I think a natural born storyteller, and I also work well with people and content. All of it made sense. And I think influencer marketing makes sense for me because I, again, spend all of my free time online. Like, I was always up to date with every influencer in every niche for some reason. So when I was like 22 and I stopped working for the surgeon and I moved back to Boston, I got a job at an agency on their influencer team where essentially we would have brands come in and they would have a certain budget. And this is every kind of brand you can imagine, from like beauty to like meat and everything in between. And I would run the campaigns and like find the creators and create the briefs that the creators would then use as, you know, talking points for their content. And I started doing that, and that was not so much like the beauty side of it or the strategy side. My first like couple years doing it were really heavily in like the product, like CPG, consumer packaged goods space. Like Coca-Cola was a client of mine, like think like Ghirardelli, Starbucks, and a little bit of beauty sprinkled in. But I loved getting to work with creators and their managers and like help sort of create the creative that they were going to then bring to life. And I was seeing how much they were making, and I was like, that's crazy, because that's one video is how much I make in a month, or more than I make in a month at the time. And I was working crazy hours. And then COVID hit, and I went remote, and everyone except me was laid off from my team, except for me and the manager that I had, because I was really good. And I stayed, and I was cranking out work. I was exhausted. And then I found another job at another agency that was all influencer marketing. And from there, I like took over some of the larger accounts, but I got to be really strategic. So like I took over Domino's, and they wanted to be more strategic, but in a way that like made no sense almost for them, like in a work with an influencer that like you would never think would work with Domino's. And at the time I followed this tortoise account, Caitlin and Tiptoe. It's this girl Caitlin and her like 100-pound tortoise who she like feeds and walks around every day, and he has a massive following. And I was like, oh my god, he eats these little vegetable pizzas all the time, like made of vegetables. Like, why not work with Domino's? And like Caitlin can eat the regular, whatever. The story short is like that took off, and I got to do way more strategy with influencer strategy, and I got to like have these great relationships with the influencers, and I was making them so much money. And I was helping these influencers and the brands storytell for their own products to sell. And then I sort of started to get the itch of like, why am I not making content if I'm giving all this advice? But at that point, I still wasn't ready to make content. I took another job at Grin, which is, I mean, public knowledge because it's all over my TikTok, which is one of, at the time, it was the largest influencer marketing platform where brands pay a premium a year, and then they have their campaigns in this platform that they run it, and they have someone like helping them, and they can source talent in it and keep everything in this campaign. And I was their strategist. So if someone worked with Grin, like Revolve, for example, they could book time with me to pick my brain as an expert.
Interesting.
And so I was like having Frankie's Bikinis and like brands under the L'Oreal umbrella and Revolve, and like every brand you can imagine, like Alice and Olivia would book time with me to pick my brain. And I was leading webinars that were like outward facing webinars for influencer marketers or brands to be like, authenticity is the currency of influencer marketing. So find creators that are authentically talking about your brand organically at least 7 times, because 7 times is the amount of times that a consumer needs to see a product mentioned for them to like likely convert to purchase it. And I was doing all these webinars all the time, and I was just giving all this free advice, and I myself was spending so much time on TikTok entertaining myself that I kind of at one point was just like, okay, I'm gonna just start making videos to see if I can do the thing that I'm telling everyone to do. And I gave myself a little challenge, a 75 hard challenge, so to speak. And I started posting 3 to 6 times a day for 75 days.
Whew.
And I was like, I'm not going to take anything like brand deal wise. Not that I thought that I would get one by then, but I was like, I'm going to build an account on authenticity, and I will not take a brand deal until it's a brand that I like truly love and use. And at the time, Osea was one of my clients, and they ended up, during my whole thing, like I started to grow and take off, and I was so consistent. Like I would wake up at 5 a.m. to film because I had a full-time job.
Wow.
And I was just trying different things. Like my first videos are so horrible. Like they're shaky.
You gotta start somewhere.
I had no lighting, but I was just like, I'm just gonna do it because I love beauty so much. Like why not? Everyone else can do it. Why not me? Like there's space for me too. And then I started doing it every single day, so consistently. I never took a break. I never took a single break in those first like 75 days. And eventually, like the brands that I was being a strategist for were like asking me about, you know, nano influencers, micro influencers, and I could be like, well, I can speak to that now because I'm a nano influencer, a micro influencer, and I was being a strategist on both ends. And then they were like, oh, well, let us gift you since we love you as our strategist. So then I would get to, you know, play both sides. It taught me a lot, and eventually I just was growing like 10,000 followers a month at that point.
Wow.
It was super consistent. I never had one video really take off till like I hit probably 20 or 30,000. And it was actually a video with my dad where he was sharing his skincare routine because he's very luxe. But by the time it was May of last year, I got laid off because Grin had to do 2 rounds of layoffs. And I was in the second round. My whole team was dissolved. And I had around 50,000 followers at the time. And I was making enough money where I didn't have to take the first job that was given to me, but I definitely needed to take a job eventually. I knew, like, I was like, oh, I'm not ready to be a full-time creator. Like, me, I couldn't. Like, that's not my expertise. Like, this is what I've been doing. Like, I'm a strategist, blah, blah, blah. So this is where things get a little sticky. I got offered a job last July for Ulta Beauty for their influencer marketing person.
Wow, yeah, that's
their
a huge
influencer
deal.
relations manager, like, under the most senior person, which was my dream job. Like, I got that job not because I was creating content, but because I was so deserving of it. Like, I know influencer marketing and did at that point more than anyone else, especially in the beauty niche. And I could speak to it from like associate content at that point. Like, it was a win-win, so one would think. However, after not working between, I think I got laid off in March. Yeah, I got laid off in March, and then I started Ulta in July. But between then and then, I was doing content all day long, and I was like loving it, and I was growing a lot. I went from like 50 to like 120K between those months.
Wow.
So I started Ulta, and I kind of had this realization where I was like, oh God, I think I do want to be the person that's making the content. Like, I don't think I'm meant anymore to maybe do both sides full time. And we went on the brand trip for the collective, like the Ulta Beauty collective, and I was there to manage the creators. But we were walking around these brands' headquarters, and I was like, I want to vlog. Like, I want to talk about it. Like, I love beauty more, or not more, but like equally as much as everyone else here. And it was like the hardest decision, but I ended up leaving Ulta right after the trip and basically telling them, like, I don't think
This isn't the right fit. I need to be on the other side.
I think I have to like give this a real shot. And if it doesn't work, that was the scariest thing I've ever done. Leaving a dream job of Ulta Beauty when you're a beauty lover working in influencer marketing, like, I had to give it a shot though, because I was like, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. And I was so scared. And also, I always told everyone in my content, I'm never going to be a full-time creator. And I think I did that out of fear and also not believing in myself, because I never thought that I was going to be someone that could do it or was worthy or valuable enough to do it. And also, I think just because I had worked so hard to gain so much knowledge and be an expert in the space, I was scared that all that would go away. But the reality that I didn't know is, and now I can look back on, is that was the best decision I made, because all that stuff that I learned has helped me become a really authentic and really educated and really strategic creator that can also pass that information off to my friends that are creators and just the public. And now I'm doing it full time, and it's been a year. And last July, I quit Ulta. This July, my perfume collab launched in Ulta.
That's a mic drop moment.
I know,
right
I'm
there.
like, shit,
how
I'm gonna
you
cry.
should be so proud of yourself.
I am.
That's amazing.
It's crazy. Like, to have, I mean, it's just crazy. Like, it's 1 year, but I had to have confidence in myself to do that. But I did, because no one else would have the confidence in me. Like, it was only me. I didn't have a manager or anything. I was like, I'm just going to do it. But if I didn't do it, I don't know what I wouldn't be sitting here. That's for sure.
No.
I did not think I was going to get emotional. But
no, I love that. It's because you put so much time and effort and you believed in yourself.
Yeah. And I'm glad I did.
Thank God.
I don't know what I'd be doing. I mean, I would be at Ulta probably still, and I'd probably be really happy in a different way, but I wouldn't be, having my perfume just sold out at Ulta. Like, they just reordered it.
That doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen unless you really... I mean, it's confidence, but it's also a lot of strategy, for sure. And I don't think every single person is, like, thinking through things the way that I do necessarily, which is not a good or bad thing. It's really painful to be this strategic because it makes me think that I have to make the right move every time. But it is proof to say that, like, I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be the person making content and being the one getting sent the influencer brief and signing that contract. Never. And I don't know if it will last forever. My goal isn't to have it last forever. I want to turn it into something long-term and a business, and I don't know exactly what that will look like. But the point is, like, if I can do it, anyone can do it. There's room for everybody. There's so much money out there to be made. But you have to actually care about what you're saying, put in the work and effort. People don't go viral overnight and get 1 million followers and then have people care about what they have to say. It's like you can have a super viral video and not get a single thing from it. But that's because you're not being consistent. Like,
Consistency and passion.
And passion. But the person that's consistent is going to win over the person that isn't every time. So it's like you don't have to be as consistent as me, but you have to be more consistent than you are currently being, which is if you're not being consistent at all, once a day.
And you can't expect that you're going to get overnight success.
No.
I mean, you had relatively quick success for all of that growth to happen in a year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it's not just luck. It's you worked your ass off
that
for it.
And also, I love this industry more than I love anything. I also know the answers to any question about beauty. I have a opinion on every single product because I spend all of my free time learning and looking and being curious. Not everyone has that, and I don't think everyone has to have that, but that benefited me. Like, I remember being a little girl and my parents would be like, Caroline, like, get off the Neiman Marcus website. You're 7. Like, why are you looking? Not really 7. That's such a hyperbolic statement, but like, I remember being on YouTube consuming all this content as a little girl and like begging my dad to take me to the Mac store, and they used to be like, you're going to turn into someone that can't keep up with your own lifestyle, or these things or habits that you're using in yourself of the things that you find entertaining, like, they're not going to serve you. And now they kind of laugh and
now
apologize.
They do.
They're like, we're sorry, like, we didn't realize this is going to turn into what it did for you.
How did your niche become fragrance?
Okay, this is the best part of the story, honestly. So, as I mentioned, I've lost around 70 pounds over the last, like, 2 years. And that's a whole separate podcast episode that we should probably do. We need to do confidence a part 2. And body and everything. But when I was starting to do beauty content, I felt really frustrated because I think beauty and fashion content is, in my opinion, the most high paying and also just the most consistent content that I would want to be a part of because it's what I love. Not so much fashion, but beauty. I don't have the best skin, and anyone watching this could be like, no, you have great skin, whatever. I haven't always had good skin. I've always had skin that isn't necessarily the skin I'd want to be making makeup or skincare videos with, and like, I don't have that face that makes me like a unicorn that you want to watch when you're watching a beauty guru. And again, anyone can be like, no, whatever, but it's like, again, I'm coming from a strategic point of view. It's the fact. It's not a democratic area of beauty is what I'm getting to. Like, not everyone, if you have really bad skin, it's going to be harder for you to make makeup videos that then people necessarily really want to watch. We have people like Alex Earl who are doing that, and they had really bad skin, and that was really helpful for them, and I think that's amazing. But I'm coming strategically, seriously, from a point of like fact over like belief. That my belief was like, I'm not going to be able to make these videos and see success. However, fragrance, in my opinion, is the most democratic area of beauty because anyone can smell anything and have their own opinion on it. And you can be any age, any weight, any height, any skin color, anything, and your opinion is just as valid in fragrance because it's all about storytelling. And I liked fragrance a lot. I have a beauty blog from when I was 18 that is archived. And I was like, I'm a marketing major and a women's studies minor, and I love like lattes and puppies and beauty and perfume. And I like can find that and look at it. And there's a blog of me talking to the void that no one saw about like my favorite perfume and how I want to smell expensive, but that I'd rather smell like marshmallow. And it's funny because I say the same thing now. But again, as a strategist, I was like, okay, perfume, I like it. And I found this one video from a girl. Her name is Oh You Pretty Things on TikTok. We're friends now. Her name is Jess. And her storytelling of this one niche perfume like took my breath away to the point where I couldn't stop thinking about this scent and how I felt like if I got this scent, it would make me feel the way that she described it. And I saved up. It's called Delina Exclusive. And it's this pink bottle. And I got samples of this scent at every department store. And I started getting samples of scents at department stores and like going on Fragrantica, which is basically like Reddit for fragrance. You can learn about the notes and the perfumer and their history and everything. And I just like fell deeply in love with the storytelling of fragrance and the fact that like you can have this crazy journey when you smell something. Bless you, love.
Thank you.
And I was like, wait, the way that I'm so theatrical and all this stuff, it works for me when I talk about perfume for some reason. And so I saved up, I got this one bottle of perfume, and I made it like my whole personality. I made like 15 videos about this perfume. And those videos weirdly did well because of the way I was describing it. And I described my taste as like, I'm the girl who used to wear Bath & Body Works vanilla. I'm the girl who used to wear DKNYB Delicious. Like, I used to want to smell really edible, but now I'm more refined and I'm a grown-up. And this is what this bottle smells like. And I think people really took to that because fragrance is already a niche on TikTok. But that niche, like the gourmand, which is the notes that are deemed edible. Gourmand is like, if you think of the root word like G-O-U-R, like gourmet, it's like the notes that are like caramel and marshmallow and vanilla and edible and like lickable. And I didn't see a ton of people talking about that only, or like as their main. And I started ordering samples, getting samples from the department store. I couldn't afford like these full bottles of really expensive perfume. So I'd get the samples and then I'd make green screen videos using the TikTok green screen feature with the full bottle behind me. And TikTok was prioritizing the green screen, and it always does. If you use that feature, it always does better than not, in my opinion. And those would take off. And if I'd talk about a perfume in those videos that I got the sample of, and that video did well, I'd reach out to fragrance retailers like Twisted Lily and Lucky Scent or the brand itself and be like, hey, my video just got 50,000, 100,000, 500,000 views. Would you want to send me the full bottle and you don't have to pay me because then I can make more videos? And for the first almost year, it was just me collecting fragrances. And then if I would get commission from a fragrance retailer, I'd invest it back into my collection and buy a bottle that was really hard to get or heavily talked about or something I knew my girls and like my community would like. And that, I did all that without spending really any money.
Smart.
And again,
very strategic.
Everyone can. Like, I would go to Saks and just like butter up the employees and be like, hey, can I have all these samples?
Yeah.
And they're going to say yes because why not?
Why not?
They're samples. And that like fragrance for me became this like deep love because it felt like it was a place where my opinion was really valued. And it's not that my opinion doesn't feel valued when I talk about things like a cream blush or whatever else, but my way of talking about fragrance is so unique to me, and like I'm so quotable because of it, and I've never felt that like power or passion or whatever it may be in any other area of beauty. And I feel like that's how I got into fragrance, and then from there it kind of sort of just torpedoed into me being known for talking about these really specific types of scents, like the fluffy, girly, marshmallowy, like, you know, angelic scents. And then Le Monde Gourmand, which is the brand that I have the collab with, I had been talking about cotton candy scents. I was doing this little series on cotton candy scents, and they had just come out with this scent called Sucre de Cotton, which is their Carnival Collection cotton candy scent. And I DM'd them and I said, hey, I'm a creator. I think I probably had like 50,000, 60,000 followers at the time, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, they were paying people, and I was like, would you send me the perfume? I don't want any money, but like, could you just send it to me? And they were like, sure. And I made a really good relationship with their girl who runs everything, Emily, because I was like the only person, I feel like, that was just wanting things
and it wasn't
with nothing
asking
in exchange. And I would promote them all the time because they're $28 a bottle, which is amazing because I talk so much about really expensive perfume too. It's unfortunately my favorite kind, but I was like, okay, well, this brand is Gourmand, which is my favorite. It's accessibly priced. It's affordable. You can get it at Urban Outfitters or online. And then after a long time of, having that relationship with them, they asked me this time last May if I wanted to come out with a fragrance with them. And I walked around the city of Boston sobbing.
Yeah, that had to feel so good.
And they were like, we know that this time next year, it will be harder to lock you down for a collab because we see so much potential in you.
They were smart.
Again, I sobbed.
Yeah,
and
they were smart.
I created Angel Soiree with them, which is my perfume collab. And it's sold out twice now on the website in Ulta, and it's coming back. And it's so yummy and delicious. And I'm so proud of it.
You should be. I'm really proud of you.
I love you.
That's amazing.
And it's crazy because now all I do is talk about perfume and beauty.
You're doing exactly what you're meant to do, and you absolutely love it.
And I love it, and I'm so thankful and grateful, and I try really hard to never complain because I feel like influencers get the whole flack of like, you should never complain, your job is easy. And I will say, it is easy compared to the other job that I had. I was working 60 plus hours a week. I was exhausted and burnt out. You will never hear me complain about this job. It is a job, and I can easily work a 10-hour day doing it, and it is actually a lot more pressure than my other job because no one is having me take breaks or shut off, and there's a lot more pressure because if you don't post for a few days, you can be irrelevant in a few days if the algorithm deems you not relevant anymore. But you'll never hear me complain because my dream has come true, and I'm glad I had the confidence in myself to do what I did last year and now be here. And I'm excited to see what like the rest of this year brings and the next year because so far it's all paying off.
Yeah,
so
it was all
love
worth
that.
it.
And now here we are.
One way I like to end all of our episodes, because I do find that a lot of people struggle to think of something that they're proud of themselves for personally or professionally outside of your perfume collab. What's something you've done this week that you're really proud of yourself for?
Well, let's see. This week has been tough because I feel like I've been a little empty-headed this week. But something I'm actually really proud of this week is the type of dog mom that I've been this week.
Love that.
My dog Petunia is my whole world aside from perfume. And I feel like she's been a little neglected walk-wise and like outside-wise because she hates the heat here. But I've been putting aside like mommy and Petunia time to have better like time as a mother to her, and like setting aside time inside or like later in the night where it's not as hot out to make sure she gets taken care of. And honestly, I know that sounds like not something to be super proud of, but being a dog mom is a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
And to care for another being and make sure that it is like taken care of and exercise and stuff when it is 110 degrees out is a whole thing. I can easily just like neglect her and be like, okay, go outside, and then we come back inside. I'm proud of that though, because I haven't felt good this week. I've had a lot of headaches and just been like not feeling good, and I still prioritized her over me. And so for that, I am confident and proud.
Snaps for you. I love that so much. I feel like there's so much more of your story that I want to dive into. We might need to do a little part 2 here.
I would love to do a part 2.
But I just learned so much about you. And I just, like, the only thing I feel like I can say, and I've said it like 3 or 4 times, is just like, I'm so proud of you because you took the uncomfortable leap of faith and have built something really, really beautiful. Yeah. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of people that are really inspired by your story.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love you. Thank you for being here. I have a feeling too, there's a lot of brand new people because you do have such a wide audience. Yeah. So if you guys are not already following the More Than Show, please make sure you do.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll do a giveaway of some sort or something.
We should do a giveaway of Angel Soiree.
I think that's
Let's do that.
Idea.
We're going to give away a bottle of Angel Soiree.
Okay.
She's going to tell you what you need to do to win it, but we will. It's so good. It's lychee, marshmallow. Oh my God. It's It's so good. It's rose milk, it's vanilla praline, it's strawberry, it's apricot. People are calling it hot girl nectar, okay?
Hot girl nectar.
So for any of our male listeners, this may be polarizing, but give it to your friends.
There's no males here, don't worry.
Someone.
There's no guys. There's no males here. It's a girls only club.
Okay, I hoped and figured that. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, a giveaway. Okay. I'll post all the details on our Instagram, so make sure you're following us there too.
That was so fun.